Good Monday afternoon, and thank you for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Rena Sargentopoulos. Happening right now, Minnesota lawmakers are racing against the clock. They have until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning to debate and pass several budget bills. If they cannot pass the budget by tomorrow morning, layoff notices will need to be sent to thousands of state workers. As part of the agreement to call the special session, just 14 bills will be debated and no amendments can be added. One of the biggest roadblocks has been a standalone bill ending access to health care in Minnesota for undocumented adults.
We do have the votes in the House for that, and I'm confident the Senate will be able to pass that also.
It is not the trade that we would have made. It's not the state budget we would have put together, but it was a compromise. And we have to keep state government functioning.
If lawmakers can pass everything and button up their work for the session, they will avoid a partial government shutdown, which is set to take place July 1st. New today, the state of California says it is suing President Donald Trump over his deployment of California National Guard troops in Los Angeles. A few hundred troops are patrolling around downtown after violent clashes between police, federal agents, and people protesting immigration raids in the city. The Los Angeles police chief calling what he sees on the streets disgusting. Maribel Gonzalez is in Los Angeles with the latest on the unrest.
The streets of downtown Los Angeles are relatively calm this morning, a stark difference from what it was just a few hours ago and in the overnight hours. And that is in part due to the Los Angeles Police Department's order that this area is an unlawful assembly area. However, those crowds did disperse, but the presence of law enforcement is still going very strong. We've seen Los Angeles Police Department blocking the intersection that leads to this federal facility behind us. And behind them this morning, we saw a group of National Guardsmen standing by with shields in hand to respond in case it was necessary.
Tensions are rising in the Los Angeles area. Over the weekend, protesters clashed with federal and local law enforcement agents. Sunday, marking the third day of demonstrations in response to recent immigration raids across California, where dozens of people were arrested as part of the White House's crackdown on unauthorized immigration.
Our community is in terror, is scared to just live, to just exist.
Sunday, the Los Angeles Police Department declared protests outside the Metropolitan Detention Center an unlawful assembly and authorized use of less lethal munitions. The unrest spilling over onto the 101 freeway, with demonstrators temporarily halting traffic that afternoon. While the protests play out on the LA streets, the federal and state governments are at odds. A coalition of 22 Democratic governors condemned President Donald Trump's deployment of 2,000 National Guard, calling the move an alarming abuse of power. But President Trump says it's to help restore order. Both California Governor Gavin Newsom and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass are urging peace and denouncing this deployment of troops.
What we're seeing in Los Angeles is chaos that is provoked by the administration, and deploying federalized troops is a dangerous escalation.
Now, it's been a decade since a president deployed the National Guard to a state without that state's request or consent. Governor Gavin Newsom this morning doubling down on what he says are his intentions to sue the Trump administration over this move. Reporting in Los Angeles, I'm Maribel Gonzalez.
A check of the markets this afternoon as U.S. and Chinese trade officials meet in London to discuss how to stop an ongoing trade war. Right now, we are just 1 month away from reciprocal tariffs from both countries on imported goods going back into effect. For now, U.S. duties on Chinese imports are at 30% instead of 145%. China's rate is down to 10% from 125%. The U.S. National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett saying he believes a trade deal between the U.S. and China is close.
I'm very comfortable that this deal is about to be closed, that it's going to be closed not with a bunch of staffers and bureaucratic language, but with handshakes. So that's the way President Trump operates.
But same terms, nothing new.
Well, I think that we can't talk about the terms that they're coming out with tomorrow because they're still working on it. But the point is we want the rare earths, the magnets that are crucial for cell phones and everything else to flow just as they did before the beginning of April. And we don't want any technical details slowing that down. And that's clear to them.
Right now, we are in day one of President Trump's travel ban. The ban impacts 12 countries, mostly from Africa and the Middle East, and it prevents residents from those countries from entering into the United States. Somalia is just one of the countries on that list. The president says he ordered the ban to protect the United States from people he considers foreign terrorists. Many Democratic lawmakers are pushing back on the ban, calling it unconstitutional. Developing right now, one person is in custody connected to a deadly shooting of a 15-year-old boy outside the Northtown Mall in Blaine. It happened Friday night in the mall's parking lot. Officers say when they arrived, they found the 15-year-old shot and rushed him to the hospital, but he died. Police say they are still looking for 2 more people in connection with the shooting. New today, a 73-year-old man in court for the first time on some shocking charges. According to court documents, James Allen Thomas, a City of St. Paul employee, is charged with kidnapping and attempted sexual conduct with a 13-year-old girl. Joe McCoy breaks down the charges. But first, we want to warn you, details of the story are disturbing.
The morning of May 21st was terrifying and disturbing for a St. Paul middle school girl. According to court documents, the 13-year-old missed her school bus and ended up trying to walk to school. It was raining, so she decided to stop at a medical clinic on Phelan Boulevard to ask for help getting to school. Sitting in a car near the entrance of the clinic was 73-year-old James Thomas, who the City of St. Paul confirms is a DSI fire safety inspector with the city. According to the criminal complaint, Thomas asked the girl if she needed help. Because of his uniform, the girl thought he was a security guard and through her iPad communicated that she needed a ride to school. The girl got in his car, but instead of driving her to school, court documents say Thomas turned off both his cell phones and drove the girl to an apartment building on the 1100 block of Agate Street in St. Paul. Inside one of the apartments, court documents say he tried to open the girl's legs, but she resisted. Thomas then allegedly offered the girl $50 twice to touch her private area, but she declined. According to the criminal complaint, after the 13-year-old did not allow Thomas to touch her, Thomas asked her if her iPad's location was on. The girl responded by saying, "I don't know," and that she needed to get to school. Thomas then decided to drive her to school. When they arrived at the school, court documents say the girl got out of the car as soon as she could and instantly began crying. She approached a school staff member who was outside and hugged them tightly while shaking and visibly upset, that staff member told investigators. Thomas was arrested on Thursday and is out on bail with no conditions. He is facing felony charges of kidnapping, attempted criminal sexual conduct with someone under 14, and soliciting a child to engage in sexual conduct. We tried to speak with him at his home in Woodbury, but no one answered the door.
Developing right now, a flotilla filled with activists from around the world that was headed for Gaza has been detained by the Israeli military. All the activists on board are currently in Israel, and the military there says every one of them is expected to be returned to their home countries. The boat was trying to get into Gaza to deliver aid and food to the people there caught up in the war. New video today showing the damage from a weekend skydiving plane crash in Tennessee. 20 people were on board that plane, which crashed shortly after departing Tullahoma Regional Airport. There were no deaths, and the injuries were described as minor, if you can believe that. 6 people were taken to hospitals for injuries that could not be tended to at the scene. That's according to a city spokesperson. The National Transportation Safety Board is investigating the crash. Life on the water will soon require an extra step for Minnesota boaters. In 3 weeks, anyone born after June 30th, 2004 will need an operator's permit to drive a watercraft like a boat or even a jet ski. Jessica Hart is diving into the change and the reaction it is getting on local lakes.
Working at the docks is a lake lover's paradise.
Even though you're close to the highway, you get out on the water and it's just a whole new experience.
Coral Anderson with River Valley Marine knows how busy Minnesota lakes are in the summer.
I've been out on a Saturday before and you can't go fast at all. You got to kind of cruise between people.
But not everyone takes it slow.
I think this new law is great. I think that it'll create a lot of education and a lot more safety on the water.
The law she's talking about goes into effect on July 1st and will require 18 to 21-year-olds to have a permit to operate motorized watercrafts.
We have over 800,000 registered watercraft in this state. We are in the top 5 nationally.
Robert Gorecki with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources says the goal is to keep people safe.
The last 2 years, in 2024 and 2023, we've seen historic lows in boating fatalities. But in 2021, we saw historic highs, and we really want to continue that downward trend.
To continue that downward trend, the law will require anybody born after July 1st, 1987 to have a permit.
We've all been kind of wanting this for a while, and I think it's a good thing for everybody.
Dave Briggs owns Wayzata Marine and has waited years for this to happen.
The more that we educate people, the safer we can be, the more people can enjoy the lakes and the rivers and just be safe and have a great time.
Making the water safer, so working at the docks always feels like paradise.
Robert with the DNR said Minnesota was one of the few states remaining that did not require adults to have a license, and he understands that it is a big change, which is why they are phasing in that age requirement. Stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.